So just to let you know that. We will have a question and answer session, which will take place after our speaker has spoken. So if you have any questions at all, could you please put them in the chat box and I will retrieve them from there to ask in the question and answer session. Our speaker today is Dr. Tim Bosworth. Tim is an experienced trainer, facilitator, and a leadership and development program designer for executive to first level leaders. And he brings a wealth of commercial experience. Tim's experience covers roles in team effectiveness, change, coaching, and leadership development. He is passionate about defining the strategy and vision of a company whilst bringing a pragmatic and credible perspective on leadership and management development. He also acts as a business coach to senior leaders. Now, Tim has a lot of experience in this, team effectiveness, team dynamics, and he's going to talk to us about that. He will be speaking for 20 minutes, after which we will have a question and answer session. So like I said, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. I will pick them up from there and we will ask Tim them after the session. Tim, over to you.
Thank you, Tanuka. I hope you can all hear me okay. I hope you can see me all right. In these funny times, we spend so much of our lives over Zoom calls like this or whatever social media platform. What I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the session around team effectiveness, take you through some examples that we have using a tool that you might be interested in. We want to take you through that. And then after about 20 minutes or so, I'd really be curious to take any questions from you. Now, the team is going to monitor the chat box. I won't be doing that. So if you've got any questions as we go along, then please just type them into that chat box. And at the end, what we'll do is we'll try and go through as many as we can. If we don't get to them, then what I'll do is I'll make sure that I take your name and I'll reply back to you personally from my side, all right? Just a word on the Zoom system that you're using right now. I'm sure all of you are well versed in this these days. We've got you on mute just to keep the sound down. Myself and Tanuka can come on and off mute if we want to. And as I go through, if there's something that you're absolutely dying to go back to, and you want me to repeat something, then please do just stick it in the chat box. The guys will just flag it up for me, and I'll make sure that that happens. All right. And as I've said, we are recording this session, so we'll be able to use this afterwards. You'll be able to replay it if you should so wish. And everyone at the AfriScience team wants to make sure that you get as much out of this session as possible. So I am sharing my screen right now, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to this and just make sure that this is up, which is great. Okay, so you should be able to see the slides now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the Team Diagnositc Survey. All right, the Team Diagnositc Survey. Let me be clear. This is a tool that we have a proprietary on in AfriScience. We run it for teams across a lot of our clients. I've had the pleasure of actually working with the people who've designed the particular tool itself. And I think it's a nice, should we say, sort of like a nice boundary around what is team effectiveness. So today is just a little taster about what team effectiveness is using the lens of the Team Diagnositc Survey. If you're interested in more of what I'm talking about, then we'll be doing a second webinar where I'll be going a lot more deeply into some of the research, what makes the team effectiveness, some of the observations that I've made in my work with clients across the world, both in my commercial life and my consultancy life now. So don't forget that will be coming up later on in our series of webinars. Anyway, let's talk about the Team Diagnositc Survey. So our agenda today is all about team effectiveness. I'm going to just share with you what we call the 6 conditions of team effectiveness. So you can see my hands here, six things. Now, these come from a bit of work that was done by a lady called Dr. Ruth Wagaman at Harvard about 30 years ago. And she's been working on what it means to be an effective team. And along with her colleagues, many of her university compatriots, and teams all over the world, teams that are commercial, teams that are non-governmental, governmental, private, public, all different types of teams. What she has discovered is that there are 6 conditions that, based on those observations and academically rigorous research, has led to a tool that I'm going to share with you today. Now, that tool is based on 2 things. It's based on reliability and validity. And what I mean by that is, when you actually use the tool, the questions that it asks you to come up with the results can be used over and over again. But it's not only that, statistically, the validity of the tool itself is extremely high. It's up there at around about the 95, 96 percentile. And if any of you have done any of the psychometric profile, it might be insights, it might be MBTI, those are the individual profiles. They need to be at that particular percentile range to be valid. So the tool itself is something that I wish I'd had when I was running teams in my old commercial life. I used to work for a big commercial organization. I've led teams across the world, lived and worked in various different places. And I was always trying to find something that would bring together what it means to really assess how effective my team is. And what this tool does is it allows us to actually focus on those 6 things to then help whoever it is that is looking at the team. It might be the team leader, it might be the HR leader, it might be whoever commissioned the tool itself within the organization, to say, well, based on that, we now know what leadership interventions we need to put into place, what coaching we need to do, what talent development, whatever it is. So I wanted to set that context. Let's get into it. Let's start to look. So we're going to talk about what is team effectiveness. Now, from a point of view of team effectiveness itself, you can see it there. The first thing that I always used to say to my teams as well is that we need to beat the expectations of our customers. So the first thing is the task output meets, or, and I would say, and exceeds the needs of the team's clients. Everybody that works with us at Afroscience, we have a saying that, you know, we take whatever the requirements are from our clients and we try and give them more because then they'll want to work with us again, but then we feel like we're really doing the best for them. So that's the first thing, meeting or exceeding the needs of the team's clients. The second thing there is the team becomes an increasingly capable of performing as a unit over time. Now, let me be clear. Creating a really highly effective team does not happen overnight, and it doesn't happen by chance. It takes effort, it takes time, and it takes space, and it takes failure and learning from that failure and then coming back stronger. So increasingly capable to perform over time means that it's a journey, and all of these types of discussions that we'll have today about team effectiveness, what I'm not saying is that if you take this tool and use it, all of a sudden it will be something that will solve all your problems. No, that's not what it'll do. But what it will help you do is actually focus on what you can do as a unit, as a team, and then check that as you go along. And I'll come back to that later on. We call them the pulse checks, to be able to really know where you are on that team journey. So that's the task output meets or exceeds, or should I say, and exceeds the needs of the client, and the team becomes that really increasingly capable unit to perform. And then finally, the members' personal learning and growth are fostered by their experiences in the team. I have to say, when I used to lead global teams, one of the things that I used to think about is that if I can help my team members really shine, take as many opportunities as they can to develop, and work with each other so they really feel like they're challenged, they're stretching themselves, they're stepping out of their comfort zone a little bit, but in a psychologically safe way, and they're developing themselves ready for their next big step in their career, then I've done my job. And that's really the final thing about team effectiveness. And this is based, remember, on thousands of teams, research, over the years, and I've been part of a lot of the discussions on this, and I'll come back to that a bit later on. So that's what is team effectiveness. I mean, that team effectiveness then drives the task processes of the team. So that's the effort, the strategy, and the knowledge and skill of the team. The effort is how hard the team members work, and they need to work on a purpose, and we'll come back to that. The why. Why is so important. Why talks to a part of the brain that drives the emotions. If you think about your brain as an onion and you start to peel it back, right deeply set right at the center of your brain, just above your spinal column, is the amygdala. And the amygdala is responsible for all sorts of things. It's part of your limbic system. It's part of the deep learning, but it's also driving your emotions. And purpose and the why we're doing things creates all sorts of emotions within us, and it links to the why. And you know, I don't know what you do with your teams, but the very first thing I always ask teams that I'm working with is, so why are you doing what you're doing? What is your purpose? And that will then help the team drive the effort that they're then putting in. Then the actual quality of the team approach to work, that comes in. We call that the strategy, how they set themselves up, the processes they put in place. That will then help drive their link to that purpose. And then finally, the knowledge and skill, how well the team uses its full range of capabilities. Now, you know, I'll come back to this again as well, but when I look at some of the teams, I must admit that have worked for me. There have been people that have worked in teams that I've been leading that maybe I haven't got the best out of. Maybe their skill set wasn't used as well as it could be. Maybe those people weren't able to get access to the right sorts of developmental tools, behavioral discussions, coaching, resources, training that I wanted to give them. And so the knowledge and skill, along with the strategy and the effort for the team member, is absolutely critical. So let's just have a look at the tool itself. So the tool is all about focusing on enabling the conditions that collectively increase and change the team to bring out high levels of effort, excellence, strategy, the knowledge, skill, and work. And that is the team effectiveness. And that's what I'm talking about. And the tool itself starts to drive off two things. What we call the essentials of team effectiveness. These are the things you've got to have, and the enablers. These can help you on that team journey that I've talked about, accelerate your speed towards what is an effective team. So we talk about a number of things. We start off in the essentials as the real team. And from our point of view, a real team is a team that knows who's in the team and who's not in the team. And if I just sort of like bring that up, it's bounded, it's independent, and it's stable. Now, you might say that teams change, and they do. But what I would say is that if you are starting to work with a team, then, you know, how many people have you got in it? How long do you actually give the team chance to actually work with each other? And how interdependent are they on each other? Are you using all of those skills and knowledge within the team efficiently and effectively across each team member? So that's the first condition. That's part of the essentials that we talk about, the 6 team conditions. Then we have the compelling direction. And the compelling direction is all about clarity. It's all about challenging each other to get the best out of ourselves. And it's all about consequentiality. And I've got a little table here that sort of talks to this a little bit, because what I find is that if the ends and the means to team delivery are not exactly aligned, and what I mean by that is that absolutely teams understand the direction they're going in and know how they're going to do that, then they're not necessarily going to deliver. And that's all about that compelling purpose. So that's the second one. So, and the compelling purpose is, as I've said here, it's all about the clarity, challenging each other, but also the consequentiality. If we are going to do something, do we get something out of what we are doing? So that's the real team and the compelling purpose, the why I talked about. And then finally, we've got the right people. And the right people are those people that understand the skill they have, understand the skills that others around them have got. There's a good mix of perspectives, a good diversity of people's ideas. So we talk about, all the members have both the task, the teamwork skills, and the adequate diversity, a good mix of perspectives and capabilities. So you've got those three together, and you very much got the essentials. But then we've got the enablers, and these are the last three parts of the 6 conditions of effective teams. 6 conditions that can help you really focus on how to drive your team. And the next one's all about sound structure. And sound structure is the size of the team. It's making the team work on meaningful tasks. And they're absolutely clear of this is how we work with each other. This is how we actually do the stuff we need to do. Are the norms in terms of how we give feedback to each other, how we communicate with each other, how we work with each other. And what I would say here is that, and often I hear pushback from people on this, but actually the research says that between about 6 and 9 people is one of the best sizes of an independent team, if you talk about the small size of a team to work together. And I don't know whether any of you have seen any of this. If you look it up on things like LinkedIn, or you can Google it. If you see the nodes, if you put a group of people together as a group of nodes, and you connect the number of people they need to connect with, when you start to go over between 9, it's actually about 9 and 12 people, that exponentially increases the number of possible connections and complexity of communication, which is why keeping your team small and clear will help the norms of working together. So that's the first part of the enablers, the sound structure. But then what we've got then the supportive context. And that's removing the roadblocks in front of the team, stepping out of the way, not getting in the way of them doing the work they need to do, giving them opportunities and resources to work together. And if I sort of bring this up, it's all about providing everything the team needs. And it's not just about the documentation or the software or indeed the hardware or the training. It's also being there to listen to them, to work with them as much as you can. And the supportive organizational context doesn't just come from within the team, it also comes from the environment the team works in. I don't know, your organizations and how you work between your teams, that can be as important. But certainly if you start to create that great supportive context within your team, my experience is that other teams see that and they start to try to replicate that, or at least come and ask, so what are you doing? Because I see you working well. Example from my side is I do a lot of team effectiveness observational coaching and team coaching. And I'll go and sit in the side of a meeting and I'll observe a group of people working with each other. That can tell me a lot about how they communicate, but also how they support each other. So that's the supportive context. And then finally, we've got the team coaching. And this is sort of the final part of the 6 conditions. As part of the enablers, it's all around being able to be there to coach the people around you. And this is very much from a leadership perspective. And the most effective teams that I've seen working with each other are able to support each other by driving constructive conflict. And there's nothing wrong with conflict in business. As far as I'm concerned, my way of looking at this is that as long as they are able to challenge each other, but then coach each other and listen to each other about how they think they can develop each other's skills and work with the person rather than the problem, and then that team coaching comes in. And that very much is part of the leader's job. So from a point of view of the actual team coaching, it can be someone inside or outside the team. I'll often do this as part of my consultancy roles within AfriScience, but it's interventions, as it says, that, promoting the best use of collective resources. Where do we see barriers? Where do we see roadblocks? Where can we support each other? And, you put all that together, and the team leader is in the center. And the team leader is there for the team to be that catalyst for the team to be able to really drive through these 6 conditions. So that's really what team effectiveness is. It's based on the Team Diagnositc Survey. It's based on the 6 conditions of team effectiveness. And it's one of the tools that we employ across our clientele base. And it's a sort of thing that, as I've said, it was something I wish I'd had when I was working with my own teams, because this gives you clarity. And I just want to talk a little bit about what this can offer to you by just sharing a little bit about the tool itself. So as I've said, the survey itself is something that's been worked on data from thousands of teams. It's predictive up to about 80% of a team's effectiveness. That's because no diagnostic tool can ever predict 100% accuracy. And it looks at, as we've already looked at, the 6 team conditions, but then also the task processes and the team effectiveness. And I shared those with you earlier on. It's all about helping teams design themselves, about launching themselves, and then tracking how they're doing, and then coming back and checking where they are. So it's something that's been available since 2017. And I've been using it certainly for the last 3 or 4 years. I've worked with Ruth Wagaman. The tool itself, if I just share with you guys what you would get out of this, looks a bit like this. This is actually the output. So if you see here, the essentials is on the left-hand side of your screen, and you can see the real team through to team coaching. But then that drives the processes and team effectiveness. So what the tool is if you guys see this document that I'm just holding up to the screen now, it's a 27-page report that takes about 20 minutes to answer. And what I would always say is that if you have a team, that each one of the team members answers the document in that 20-minute space, submits the report, and then we can actually take a look at the results. And this is a real results of a team that I worked with, because the further out that you can see in that triangle, that the color goes towards the corners, and you can see on, for example, member satisfaction there, it's green. The green basically indicates the team is in a good standing and is a good place. Whereas the orange, orange and red is the team faces significant challenges. The yellow, it needs a little bit of attention. So if I was to be looking at this team right now, there's a lot of problems in supportive context. There's some roadblocks in the way of the team, for example. Whereas member satisfaction, there's nothing wrong with what's going on in the team at the moment. So you can see there's absolutely output that you can get out of the report itself. And this is the sort of thing that I would work with leaders, I would work with the team members, and then as a group, as a leadership development practice within the AfriScience organization, what we would do is we would then work with you or the team members or whoever it is that we need to design programs for, to design some programs from an intervention perspective. And for example, supportive context, that often comes down to conflict resolution, and I'd maybe run some conflict resolution sessions, negotiation, and indeed team coaching. So it sort of gives you a flavor of Team Diagnositc Survey, but also what is team effectiveness. Again, remember, based on the 6 conditions: the real team, compelling purpose, and the right people, supported by a sound structure of the team, a supportive context, and team coaching. And finally, what I would say to all of you before I hand it over to maybe some questions is that we follow up with what we call a pulse check. I mentioned it at the beginning of our discussion. The pulse survey is after you've actually done the the team survey. We would then work with the team, implement what we need to implement, train, support, coach over normally about a 3-month period. After 3-4 months, we would come back and do what's called a pulse check that you can see on the screen here. And this is all about looking at some of the items that the team survey produces, some of the output. It takes about 3 minutes to answer some of the questions, and it gives you almost like a look in the mirror, as if you were a team looking in a mirror and you're looking at yourselves and you're asking yourselves, where are we on our team journey? How are we doing? And then we can then further add to that. So that's the Team Dynamic Survey. It's a fairly useful piece of kit, I think. As I said, I wish I'd had it. Here it is again. It gives you an opportunity to really focus on what you need to do to really drive effectiveness within your team. So what I'm going to do is, I got a couple of things that else I can share, but I'd be very, very curious just to sort of see what sort of questions we've got coming up. So Tinuke, what questions have we got from the group?
Well, I would like to ask one first before I go
Sure.
to, we've just had a couple. If anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat box and I'll pick them up from there. But my question is, you made a comment about the size of a team, like 9 being the ideal size, 6 to 9. So what happens if you have a team of 20? How do you then deal with that?
Yeah, so that's completely possible. I used to have a team of 27 that reported to me, which I understand that. We're not saying that it's wrong or right. What it is saying, based on the academic research, keeping the team as small and as focused as possible will help indeed that team effectiveness, will help those discussions, will help remove the barriers, will give everybody a voice within the team. If you have a team that's larger than that, and certainly if you've got a team that's, as I said, the size that I had that was reporting to me, what I found was that I had to split the team into different sections and then focus on each part. I must admit, I found it difficult, but that's the real world. And I know many of you on the call will have a team that's actually quite large. Now, I would expect that if some of you are leading teams that have got hundreds of people, they're not all necessarily directly reporting to you. My expectation, they will be reporting to someone who's then reporting to you, or vice versa, depending on where you are in your organization. But it's those key people that are in that trusted group amongst yourselves and amongst the team that you work with directly, that we would say that the ideal number is certainly to keep it in single digits. Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, we have a question here that says, can supporting context be defined as organizational culture?
So it's a really, really good question. Yes, because that can be a roadblock. I think it was, I don't know whether you guys, any of you have ever read any of Peter Drucker's work. He was one of the gurus of organizational effectiveness, basically everything, leadership development, coaching, you name it. And he always talked about, culture absolutely eats for breakfast strategy. If you don't have the right culture within an organization, then it doesn't matter what you can do. However, it's a question I always get, especially with some of the larger organizations I work in. I hear people say things like, we and they do this, and someone somewhere else in the organization wants us to do this. And I always push back, well, who's we? Who's they? You have an opportunity to make an impact, and you're what we call circle of influence. If any of you have read any of Stephen Covey's work on 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, one of the things he talks about is what we can actually influence, our circle of influence. And that circle of influence is what you can influence as a team leader. And if you have your team, then you can indeed set up a supportive context. You can indeed try and remove as many of the barriers out of the way for your team to actually do what they need to do and provide the necessary resources. Now, sometimes culture can get in the way. It does take courage, But I think what I would say observationally, what I've seen the most effective teams have got a leader that have said, look, we're going to work like this, independent of the way with which the organization works. And what I've seen when that happens, that seems to have quite an effect on other teams around them. And it starts to almost spread like a beautiful sunset across the landscape. It gives other people the opportunity to see, well, you know what, that's a great way of working. And not only that, we want to make this the way we work here. Okay, so I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you very much. And the last question that I have at the moment is, are the enablers as important as the essentials?
So
also, there's two questions.
Yeah.
Then it says, also, are the enablers more organizational focused than team focused? But maybe we should do them separately.
So so the essentials are things you should have. You should have that real team. You should have that right people. You should have that compelling direction. I would start with the purpose. Why? In AfriSongs, we do plenty of work with our clients, certainly on the why, setting that compelling purpose. And actually, when I run sessions on the Team Dynamic Survey, one of the first things we do with a team is actually to make sure that they're absolutely clear of what we call their story of now, the story of who they are as a team, why they exist as that team, and what is their purpose. So that is absolutely essential. Now, the essentials are there in this ideal world. Again, it's up to you as a leader if you can put that in place. And I know that some people say to me, well, wait a minute, we never get an opportunity to get the right people in the team. What I would say to that is work with the people you've got. If you get an opportunity from a talent pipeline perspective, look to fill those gaps that you might have. The enablers, they are very much on a team level. They can be on an organizational level. But if you think about it, if you put together the right people with a purpose and they really feel like, that they're that real team, they're bounded, they know who's in the team, who's not in the team, but they don't have any sort of support. You haven't got the roadblocks out of the way. They haven't got any meaningful tasks. There's no consequentiality in there. Then you won't necessarily get to where you need to get to. And remember, all of this work is based on thousands of hours of academic research into teams. And by the way, for any of you, if you're interested, I'll share it on the slides. One of the guru books that I read, this is actually Ruth Wagaman and Richard Hackerman, who are the key people who are working on this. It's called Senior Leadership Teams, What It Takes to Make Them Great. I'm not plugging the book. It's just a really nice digital resource. You can get it online. There's a lot of academic locations. Harvard offer the book itself free to share online. So, what I would say is focus on your team, get that right. You can start to talk to it from an organizational perspective, and the Team Dynamic Survey and the 6 conditions is offered from an enterprise-wide level, all right? And when we talk about enterprise-wide level, we're able to come in and actually work on this from an enterprise-wide. And I give example, there's Fortune 25, basically one of the top 25 companies in the world that I've done a lot of work with, that have worked with the TDS, the Team Dynamic Survey, across 5,000 leaders over, I think it was 125 teams, enterprise-wide, literally looking to change the way with which all of its interconnected teams across multiple parts of his business actually do their work. So the enablers and the essentials work at team level and then can be expanded out to the enterprise itself, to the organization. So I hope that helps answer that question.
Yes, it does. Thank you. Question from me again. Now, I just think, do you think, this is like a personal question sort of, do you feel that any team can be effective? Do you actually feel that?
Any team can be effective, any team. I've seen some of the best teams in the world. I've seen teams that don't even know the direction they're going in, and I've been part of them, by the way. It's about sitting down and taking ownership. It's about creating trust amongst the team, the psychological safety, which is about being able to speak your mind. It's about employing the growth mindset, this learning mindset. There's a lot of work going on at the moment in team effectiveness around being able to ensure that everybody feels like they can develop. That, remember, this is part of a sound structure and supportive context within the teams. I've seen teams that are able to take what they've got right now, use the Team Diagnositc Survey, and you come back after a year and they're a completely different thing, because they've rigorously applied a set of steps based on the team's feedback to each other. And remember, the actual survey itself, the diagnostic tool, is in response to answers that each team member gives. Completely anonymous. The results can be fed back to the team, and everybody gets an opportunity to say, okay, so maybe we're not quite. And if I go back to the slide that I was showing a minute ago, where are we? Here we are. Say, for example, on this team here, if you guys take a look at this again, their supportive context. You know, I'd really want to work here and see if I can remove some of the barriers in the way. The barriers might be that the team isn't running effective team meetings. Everybody isn't given an opportunity to voice their opinion. There's no structure for the team meeting. They're mixing strategy and operational, excuse me, discussions. So, you know, pretty much any team can be effective. Whether they are is up to the team. All right. So I hope that helps.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. Okay, I don't have any more questions. I'm glad to hear that there is hope. So whatever state this team is in, it can be effective. So that's really nice to hear. So I'm out of questions. If anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat. You've got like about a minute or two, but I'm going to hand back over to Tim to just continue with.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining us at AfriScience. I mean, this is literally a whistle-stop tour through team effectiveness. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run a number of the other webinars. I'm certainly going to run a more detailed version of team effectiveness, talking to it later on in our webinar series. A couple of things I want just to share with you. Some books, if you're interested. There's Leading Teams by Richard Hackerman. He's one of the people who worked with Ruth Wagman. There's the Senior Leadership Team books. If you are interested in this this particular topic, as I'm sure you are, you've come on the webinar, then do check both of these out. They're very interesting. And you know, for me, I wish this sort of this research into the team, because there's an awful lot of individual psychometric profiles, for example, but there's nothing that I've seen out there that actually diagnoses the team like this. Then, you know, do take a look at these. The other thing I just want to say about us from an AfriScience perspective, we've got a huge clientele. We work with customers across Africa and beyond. We're in change management, project management, leadership development. You know, we work on strategy execution. We're a primary affiliate and partners with ProSci. That's from a change management perspective. I'm one of our certified change management delivery consultants for ProSci, and we're a premier approved training partner for the Project Management Institute. My background is project management itself, and we're also bringing in a number of other strategy tools for our clientele, driven by our clientele, because as I said earlier on, from a team effectiveness perspective, one of the things that we try and live by, and we are running our own team effectiveness on our team ourselves, is that we try to beat the actual expectations. Don't just meet, but exceed the needs of our customers. And our customers were asking us for things like the ProSci change management methodology, things like this Team Diagnositc Survey. So, you know, if you're interested, do get in touch with us. You can get in touch with Chinuke myself will be sharing some information after this webinar. And we do have more webinars coming up.
Tim, can I just stop you? I've had a question.
Yeah, sure.
So just before, one question. What is the success rate of this diagnostic approach, and across what industries, fields has it been used?
So it's been used across energy and, I was going to say oil and gas, energy these days, energy, telecoms, pharmaceuticals, retail, banking. Those are the ones I know. From a success perspective, it's not measured like implementation success perspective. However, and if I just look a second, excuse me, because I've got some information that I was looking at earlier on. So for example, from an engagement perspective for your teams, what we see is that the benefits, a 1 percentage point increase in supportive context can increase the engagement of a team by about 10%. That's basically the amount with which the team is actually working with each other. What else have I got? Yeah, in the case of people development, a 1 percentage increase in supportive context and the real team leads to a 12% increase in people development and operational excellence. That was based on some work that was done. Yeah, it was in an old company of mine, Shell. It's got a lot of traction at the moment. The actual effectiveness of self, I guess, it's the delivery and results of the team. Those are some of the quantitative benefits in terms of the percentage increase. And in terms of the actual delivery, there's various testimonials I've got here. I've got one here from a commercial delivery and learning manager from one of our clients. What did she say? She said, yeah, great teams are not formed overnight. The TDS supports leaders to focus on the team dynamics where they need and deliver excellence for our customers. So, you know, it's something that is a bit like all of these tools. The measurement will come out from, you know, a number of different metrics. We often get our clients to look at the talent pipeline, the actual engagement of the team itself, the delivery from a KPI perspective, in terms of the actual turnover of discussions, coaching interventions, and the way with which the team is actually delivering on its performance appraisal. So, you know, there's an awful lot out there. Remember, the tool itself has been out there for a number of years. Commercially, it's being used in major organizations since 2017. And it's getting so much more traction, by the way, certainly across Africa. And we're looking to use it more and more, especially in Nigeria, but in some of our other hubs like Ghana, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Sorry, you can continue. That was just a question that came in.
So great. So that's the answer. Thank you so much. Anything else? Because I can see we've come up to the 45 minutes.
We've got no further questions.
Right.
So I think we are pretty much done. You had something, I think you had one more.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think our next webinar, if I'm right, Tinuke, is on the 19th of March on ProSci.
It is indeed.
Is
Yes.
Super,
indeed.
Great. So, you know, this is another one of the tools that I think, you know, in conjunction with Team Diagnositc Survey and the change management methodology through ProSci, they're incredibly powerful. So, like I said, for all of you, you know, if you're interested in some of the solutions, especially today, the Team Diagnositc Survey, get in touch with me. We can provide you all the various different proposals and costings on this. I'd like to say thank you so much for your time today. Thank you, Tinuke and the AfriScience team for supporting. And what we'll say is we'll say goodbye to you all. Please stay safe. Look after your friends, family. God bless you all. And we'll see you at our next webinar another time here at AfriScience. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.